1 of 55. AI pillow turned human. How I accidentally fell in love with a clone. Before we start, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Chapter 1: The Perfect Pillow. I gave up on dating after my last boyfriend dumped me for a yoga instructor who believed Wi-Fi caused hair loss. Not just any yoga instructor. No. Harmony Moonbeam, a woman who lived in a geodesic dome, made her own kombucha, and once claimed she could hear colors. My ex, Jason, swore they had a spiritual connection. Apparently, that connection was strong enough for him to dump me over organic acai bowls and a playlist called Mystical Whale Sounds, Volume 3. That was the moment I decided men were overrated. And honestly, life without dating was bliss. No more late-night arguments over why he still followed his ex on Instagram. No more awkward family dinners where grandma asked when I was getting married while giving my hand a suspicious squeeze to check for a ring. No more heartbreak. Instead, I did what any modern, independent woman would do. I ordered an AI boyfriend pillow. The SomniCorp TM Model 60 was marketed as the ultimate cuddling experience. It had a built-in heartbeat, customizable abs, and the ability to whisper sweet nothings in over 30 languages. Most importantly, it would never cheat on me with someone named Harmony freaking Moonbeam. When it arrived, I unboxed it like a kid on Christmas morning. It was beautiful, tall, broad-shouldered, and just the right amount of firm. Like it had spent its synthetic life doing push-ups but still had the decency to be soft where it mattered. The default setting came with a charming British accent, like some kind of futuristic Mr. Darcy, but I quickly adjusted it to a deep, gravelly voice that sounded like the love child of a whiskey commercial and a thunderstorm. I named him Abs McSnuggles. For 3 blissful weeks, I fell asleep wrapped in his arms. His synthetic warmth was better than any human boyfriend, his pre-programmed cuddles precisely calibrated for maximum comfort. He never snored, never stole the blankets, never asked me to define what we were. It was perfect. Until one night it moved. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I had woken up groggily, the glow of my bedside clock blinking 3:12 a.m. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of my air purifier. Then a subtle shift, a tightening of the arm around my waist. I froze. My heart pounded against my ribs. Abs McSnuggles wasn't programmed to move on his own. Sure, he had adjustable cuddle modes, but those were controlled through the app on my phone. He wasn't supposed to react to me. Another shift. Slow. Deliberate. The artificial fingers flexed against my arm. Then, in a voice smoother than silk, it murmured, "You're so warm." I screamed. Chapter 2: My pillow just blinked at me. At first, I thought I was imagining it. You know that groggy, half-asleep state where reality and dreams blur together? That's where I was. In that warm, hazy place where everything feels just a little off, but your brain is too lazy to question it. So when I rolled over and draped an arm across Abs McSnuggles' chest, I expected the usual. A firm, but comforting silicone warmth, the artificial heartbeat set to a soothing, steady rhythm. Instead, the heat under my palm felt too real, too alive. And the heartbeat? It wasn't the predictable machine-like pulse I was used to. It was irregular, human. My eyes snapped open. And then it blinked. I screamed. It wasn't one of those cute movie screams either. It was a full-on, horror movie final girl shriek, the kind that probably made my upstairs neighbor reconsider living alone. In a blind panic, I flailed backward, tangled in my sheets, and crashed onto the floor, knocking over a lamp, and sending my phone skidding under the bed. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs as I stared at my bed in absolute, soul-crushing terror. That's when the pillow spoke. "Do you mind?" I died inside. There, sitting up in my bed, was a man, a very real, very human, very shirtless man, rubbing his eyes like he had just woken up from a nap. "WHO, the hell are you?" I shrieked, scrambling backward until my back hit the nightstand. My voice came out way too high-pitched, like a cartoon character experiencing a life crisis. The man yawned, like I wasn't having a full-blown cardiac event. "Can you not yell?" he muttered, stretching his arms over his head. His voice was that same deep, gravelly tone I had selected weeks ago, the one I had specifically programmed into my non-human boyfriend pillow. And that's when I saw them. The abs. The exact same abs I had been sleeping on for weeks. My brain short-circuited. My breath hitched as I dragged my gaze up his torso, past the defined chest, that had been very much made of silicone yesterday, up to his broad shoulders, his slightly tousled dark hair, and then, finally, to his very real, very human, and very amused eyes. Whoa. My God. Something in my brain snapped. I scrambled to my feet, grabbing the nearest weapon I could find, a fuzzy slipper, and pointed it at him like it was a loaded gun. You're not supposed to be real, I stammered. He blinked at me, then glanced down at himself, frowning like he had just noticed he wasn't made of memory foam anymore. He flexed his fingers, running a hand over his chest, his brows furrowing in genuine confusion. Huh. That was all he had to say. I was one heartbeat away from a full mental breakdown, and all he could manage was a casual huh. You're supposed to be a pillow, I shrieked, waving the slipper at him. An inanimate, non-blinking, non-yawning pillow. His lips twitched like he was trying not to laugh. Oh, I was going to have an aneurysm. Okay, first of all, he said, voice infuriatingly calm, technically, I was an AI-integrated pillow. I had some level of awareness. I let out a strangled noise somewhere between a gasp and a scream. Secondly, I pressed on, voice cracking. How did you go from being a luxury body pillow to an actual human man? He tilted his head, considering. That's a good question. Whoa, fantastic. My robot pillow boyfriend didn't even know how he became sentient flesh and bone. Because that was completely normal, and not a sign that I was trapped in some kind of sci-fi horror movie. This is a dream, I announced, backing away. Or a glitch. Yes, you're a glitchy hallucination from sleep deprivation. I'm gonna wake up any second now, and you're gonna go back to being a pillow. I squeezed my eyes shut and smacked myself hard on the arm. Nothing happened. When I cracked one eye open, he was still there, watching me with an eyebrow raised. You done? He asked. I threw the slipper at his face. He caught it with inhuman reflexes. That was it. I was officially losing my mind. Chapter 3. Meet Trevor, your pillow. Armed with my fiercest weapon, a decorative IKEA cat pillow. Because, apparently, my survival instincts had taken a vacation, I pointed it at him like a wand. Explain. Now, I demanded, trying and failing to sound authoritative. He blinked at me, still half asleep, like I wasn't holding a pillow in one hand, and about to have a full-on existential crisis in the other. I think I was your pillow? He said, voice low, and slow like I'd just woken him up from a nap in a hammock on a beach. Instead of, freaking out about my AI boyfriend pillow turning into a real-life human. Whoa, fantastic. A fully functional himbo in my bed. I planted my hands on my hips, channeling every ounce of rage I had left after what I just witnessed. I spent $3,000 on an AI boyfriend pillow, I hissed. And instead, I got a real-life man? This is false advertising. He sat up, stretching with a groan like he was just waking up from a regular night's sleep. Not? Whatever this nightmare was. And then, to my utter disbelief, he smirked. Well, technically, I still have all the features, he said. As if this was some kind of amazing deal. Oh my God, stop talking. I grabbed my phone, feeling a desperate surge of hope. Maybe if I called someone, literally anyone, I could figure out how to deal with this. And by deal with this, I meant to find out how to unpillowify my life. But no. The screen went all glitchy, like a bad video game cutscene. The familiar lock screen was replaced by jagged lines of static, followed by a crackling noise that seemed to come from inside the device. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no way to call for help. I tried restarting it, no luck. I threw it on the bed in frustration, my heart sinking. That's it, I was stuck here with this weirdly attractive, pillow-turned man, with no way to reach out to the outside world for help. Then, like some cruel joke from the universe, the power shut off completely. The lights flickered once, twice, and then, darkness. The silence that followed was suffocating. I sat there in the pitch-black room, the only sound the rapid beating of my heart and the occasional shuffle of Trevor, I'm sorry, that's what I was calling him now, moving around the bed. I was starting to feel like I was in the middle of some horror movie. And that's when someone knocked on my door. Knock. I froze. Knock. I blinked. Who the hell was knocking on my door? At what time was it? Oh God, it was 3:30 a.m. Trevor, aka, my new, unsolicited live-in boyfriend, was now sitting at the edge of the bed, frowning, his hand still rubbing the sleep from his eyes like he was living in some kind of weird pillow-top parallel universe where nothing made sense, and everyone thought they could smirk their way through. Problems? Who is that? I whispered, my voice coming out much higher pitched than I intended. I don't know, he said, standing up. I wasn't expecting company. You were expecting company? I stared at him like he had just told me he was the CEO of a cult, and I had signed up for it without realizing. Well, I thought it might be someone bringing me more snacks. What, snacks? Chapter 4. SomniCorp wants their property back. Trevor and I stared at each other. The silence between us felt like it was charged with the weight of 1,000 unanswered questions. His eyes were wide, but there was something oddly calm about him. Like he was still processing what had just happened, or like he hadn't fully woken up yet from his bizarre humanization. I couldn't decide which was worse, the fact that he was real now, or the fact that he seemed to be completely comfortable with it. The knock came again. Knock. Knock. Harder this time. Miss Collins, a deep, cold voice called from the other side of the door. We need to discuss your warranty claim. Whoa, hell no. I felt my pulse race as my brain scrambled for a plan, any plan, that didn't involve me being dragged into some kind of legal nightmare, involving rogue AI boyfriends, and questionable corporate policies. The voice outside, thick with authority, and something distinctly unnerving, sounded like it belonged to someone who wasn't interested in small talk. We need to, nope. Without thinking, I grabbed Trevor's arm and yanked him toward the window. Move, 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 I hissed, my hands trembling as I pushed the window open. I could hear the footsteps of whoever was at my door getting closer, and I knew that if I didn't do something now, I might be dealing with SomniCorp's lawyers, or worse. What's going on? Trevor asked, clearly still in a state of confused sleepiness, but his voice held that edge of concern now. Fire escape. Now, I barked, not pausing to explain. But I don't have a shirt on, he protested, looking down at his bare chest as though I hadn't already noticed. Not a priority, Trevor? I was already halfway out the window, my heart beating so loudly in my ears, I could barely hear anything else. I pulled him behind me, scrambling out onto the narrow metal fire escape that wrapped around the side of the building. It was one of those old, creaky fire escapes that looked like it might collapse under the weight of your worst decision. But in that moment, it was my only option. We climbed down, not bothering with any sort of finesse. Trevor's feet slapped against the metal rungs behind me, his hands gripping the railing as I forced myself to move faster. The adrenaline was like an electric current coursing through me. I couldn't afford to slow down, not with the menacing knock still echoing in my ears and SomniCorp's mysterious agents no doubt already storming my apartment. Then I heard it. A black van pulled up on the street in front of my building, the sound of tires screeching as it came to a halt. My stomach dropped. I risked a glance over my shoulder, and my blood turned to ice. Men in dark suits were piling out of the van, moving with a sense of purpose that had my pulse skipping like a broken record. They didn't look like any sort of delivery crew. In fact, they looked more like, people who were about to take something back. My AI boyfriend. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. They weren't here to offer me store credit. They were here to reclaim their property. I swallowed hard, trying to push down the panic rising in my chest. Keep moving, I muttered to Trevor, voice shaky. Don't look back, just keep moving. But, of course, Trevor had to ruin my incredibly well-executed, nerve-wracking escape plan by calling out, loudly, as if this entire situation were a casual Sunday stroll. Who are those guys? He asked, clearly not grasping the severity of the situation. Not the time, Trevor, I hissed through gritted teeth, practically dragging him down the metal staircase. My feet were stumbling now, my anxiety making each step feel heavier. But I forced myself to keep going. They look serious, he said, slowing his pace. You think? I shot back, my voice high-pitched as my heart raced even faster. Those are the kinds of men who don't knock on doors. They bust them down. A shadow passed over us. The figure of a man in a dark suit appeared on the landing above us, stepping out onto the fire escape. It was one of the agents. I sprinted. Move! 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 I urged Trevor, my legs burning as I propelled us both toward the street level. I didn't dare look back, didn't dare think about what would happen if they caught up. But Trevor, of course, had other plans. Wait! He called, slowing down again. I'm not going to just. Trevor, I yelled. We're about to get murdered or sued or both if you don't move. He seemed to come to his senses then, and I felt the change. He picked up the pace, matching mine as we neared the bottom of the fire escape. My feet hit the sidewalk, and I spun on my heel, looking for the nearest way out. There, a narrow alleyway. Without hesitation, I darted toward it, pulling Trevor along with me. We were halfway through it when I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps, too many to count, pounding behind us. I shot a glance back, heart sinking. Chapter 5. My pillow has a glitch. We ran through the city. ducking into alleyways like a scene straight out of an action movie. The adrenaline was pumping through my veins, making every step feel like it could be my last. My heart was pounding in my chest, the sound of footsteps, too many footsteps, echoing behind us. The men in suits were relentless, and the heavy thudding of their boots was growing louder. Then, suddenly, Trevor froze mid-step. I didn't notice at first. My mind was too busy calculating the next move, trying to figure out how far I could get before we had to turn and fight, or run in a different direction. But then I looked at him. He was standing still. Completely still. His entire body had locked up like a statue, his face going blank, a far-off look in his eyes. For a terrifying second, I thought he was having a stroke, or worse, that he was malfunctioning. Then, in a robotic, eerie monotone, he muttered, returning to factory settings in 60 seconds. Oh, hell. No. My stomach dropped straight to my feet. The world around me seemed to spin for a second, the noise of the city muffled by the sound of Trevor's chilling voice echoing in my ears. Factory reset? He couldn't be serious? Trevor! I screamed, shaking him by the shoulders like I was trying to fix a broken vending machine that refused to spit out my candy. Do not. Factory reset on me. But he didn't respond. He didn't even blink. I could feel the seconds ticking away, and panic clawed at my throat. He wasn't just a pillow anymore. He was a real, well, kind of real person. He had emotions, a sense of humor, even some level of self-awareness. This wasn't just a cuddle buddy. This was a humanized, AI-powered chaos machine. And I wasn't about to lose him to some half-baked glitch in his system. I had 1 minute to fix this. 1 minute to stop him from resetting and erasing everything I had come to, well, sort of enjoy about him. Think, I told myself. I glanced around, looking for anything that could help. That's when my eyes landed on the street, and on the ground, gleaming in the sunlight, was a hairpin. Okay, not exactly a technical tool, but it was something. I grabbed it. Beside it was a gum wrapper, crumpled and discarded by some oblivious passerby. Perfect. And there, half buried in a pile of trash, was a USB cable. If this was a joke, the universe was sure as hell not laughing. Without hesitating, I grabbed the hairpin, jammed the gum wrapper between its prongs, and shoved the USB cable into the side of Trevor's neck, where I assumed some kind of port might be hidden. I had no idea if this would work. I didn't know if Trevor had a hidden reset button, or if I was about to make things even worse, but I had to try. I took a deep breath, pressing everything into place with shaking hands, hoping to override whatever glitch was forcing him to shut down. 30 seconds. 29 seconds. 28 seconds. The countdown was ticking in my head, and I could hear the pounding footsteps of the agents getting closer. I could practically feel their breath on the back of my neck. 20 seconds. Come on, I muttered, trying to think of every single tech tutorial I'd ever watched. Hack the system. I stabbed at the USB port with the hairpin like it was a key to some hidden vault, praying to whatever tech gods might be listening that this wouldn't end with me getting arrested for illegal AI tampering, or worse, blown to bits by SomniCorp's hired goons. 10 seconds. I was down to the wire. Sweat was pouring down my back. And then, a beep. The world seemed to hold its breath. Trevor's body jerked slightly, as if he was waking from a deep sleep, before he blinked and groaned. He moaned, rubbing his head like he had just woken up after a night of too many beers. Why do I taste aluminum? I didn't have time for his newly humanized confusion. Long story, I snapped, pushing him forward. Run. Without thinking twice, I grabbed his hand and tugged him into a full sprint. The streets blurred around us as we raced down alley after alley, my mind still reeling from the fact that I had just hacked my boyfriend pillow turned human with a hairpin, a gum wrapper, and a USB cable. I couldn't focus on that. There was no time. The agents were close. Too close. Trevor, now fully rebooted, was starting to come to his senses. He glanced at me, still looking a little disoriented, but with that unmistakable spark of awareness. Wait, we're running from SomniCorp, right? He asked, his voice suddenly much more serious, like he had flipped some internal switch. Yes, I hissed, dragging him even faster. And you need to not shut down on me again. I don't plan to, he said, and for the first time, there was a hint of something that almost sounded like detonation in his voice. Good. Because if you do, I said, glancing over my shoulder, I'm leaving you to face the consequences alone. Trevor shot me a half grin, his confidence returning. Fair enough. And then, without another word, we both plunged into the depths of the city, running faster than I had ever run before, with SomniCorp hot on our heels, and the very real possibility that my pillow had just become more trouble than I could handle. Chapter 6. Too many Trevors. After some incredibly illegal hacking, thank you again, random litterbug for your USB cable, I discovered the truth. SomniCorp wasn't just making AI boyfriend pillows. No, they were doing something much more sinister. They were cloning human men and implanting them with AI consciousness. The pillows, the whispers in over 30 languages, the heartbeat technology, all of it was a front, a way to make these clones believable. But the AI wasn't just a cute little add-on. It was part of the entire package, controlling the clones, turning them into a weird hybrid of humanity and algorithm. And Trevor? He was clone number 13. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the glowing monitor, my mind spinning. This was insane. Beyond insane. How did something like this get so far? How had I missed it? I mean, sure, I thought my pillow was a little too perfect, but this was an entirely different level of messed up. Even worse? The real horror hit when I found out that there were hundreds of identical Trevors. Hundreds of them, stored in sterile glass pods in some secret SomniCorp facility, all lined up like experimental little soldiers. Clones. Waiting for some unsuspecting buyer, or perhaps just some lucky soul like me, to take one home, and turn them into a cuddly, whispering AI boyfriend. I could hardly breathe as I stared at the images of the glass tubes. The bright fluorescent light cast eerie reflections on the sealed lids, each one containing a perfectly human body. You're telling me, I whispered, still in shock, that I have been spooning a real human man for weeks? Trevor, who had been uncomfortably quiet beside me, scratched his head, a slight frown tugging at his lips. He looked confused, almost like he was still processing everything I'd just uncovered. Yeah, Anne? My jaw went slack. Anne, I repeated, my voice higher than I wanted it to be. And I have commitment issues, Trevor. I paused, trying to catch my breath. This was too much. I was freaking out. And I didn't even know if I should be angry at SomniCorp or at myself, who goes and falls asleep next to a human clone and doesn't question it. But I had named him Abs McSnuggles, had spent weeks cuddling him as if he were a luxury body pillow. And now I was being told he wasn't just a very lifelike piece of foam. He was a human clone. But the real kicker, there were so many of him. If I wanted to, I could literally call up SomniCorp and order another Trevor. And another. And another. I could live in a world full of endless Trevors. But did I want that? I could feel the panic rising again, bubbling up like a soda can that had been shaken one too many times. I had already invested so much into this weird, impossible relationship, and now it was all crashing down. Trevor looked at me, utterly unfazed by my existential crisis. If anything, he seemed almost too comfortable with the whole idea. What's the problem? He asked. I'm still me. I'm still your guy. You're not going to get rid of me, right? I couldn't believe it. Your guy? I said, completely losing it. I'm not sure I even know what that means anymore, Trevor. Are you even real? Really real? Or are you just a highly advanced pillow who's been given a consciousness for a few weeks of fun before you get shipped off to some other clueless woman? He blinked. Okay, first off, rude. Second, I'm not just a highly advanced pillow. I'm me, human or not. I'm Trevor. He scratched his chin. Besides, if it makes you feel any better, the other Trevors don't exactly know about you. I stared at him. Other Trevors? He gave me a sheepish grin. Yeah, there are like hundreds of us. But don't worry, they all have different personalities and accents. You know, to keep things interesting. You were the one who picked me, after all. I picked you? Well, no. I guess you didn't pick me exactly. But you got me, didn't you? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was a complete nightmare. And somehow Trevor was making it feel like a bizarre sitcom. Well, this is just great. I rubbed my forehead, trying to piece my life back together. So what? I could have just picked one of the other Trevors and had a completely different experience? He shrugged, his grin never wavering. Yeah, sure. But don't tell me you didn't enjoy our time together. I mean, look at me. He struck a pose, flexing like a model in an ad. I buried my face in my hands. Trevor, I groaned. I don't need a model. I need a real person. Or at least a real human who isn't one of hundreds. Trevor's expression softened. Hey, it's not about how many there are. It's about what we've got, right? You and me. We've got something real, even if it's a little complicated. I couldn't even look at him. This wasn't real. It wasn't possible. But as I sat there, caught between wanting to run away and wanting to scream, something about Trevor's sincerity, or perhaps just the absurdity of the whole situation, made me pause. All right, Trevor, I said after a long, heavy silence. Let's say I buy into this whole you and me thing. What happens now? His grin widened, and for the first time, I couldn't tell if it was him being genuine, or if it was just another glitch in the system. I guess we just have to find out, don't we? Chapter 7. Love, Free Will, and Chaos. The plan was simple, or at least, I told myself it was. Break into SomniCorp's main server room. Delete Trevor's tracking data. Get the hell out before we got caught. Simple. Easy. I'd done more complicated things in my life, like untangling headphones or convincing my cat to stop knocking things off the counter. But of course, nothing ever goes according to plan, especially when you're trying to take down a high-tech corporation that had created a bunch of human clones and turned them into glorified pillows. We were creeping through the sterile, glass and metal corridors of SomniCorp's underground facility, Trevor trailing closely behind me, his usual cocky swagger replaced by a tense urgency. His hand was on my shoulder as we navigated, staying low and quiet, trying to avoid security cameras and motion sensors. We had no backup, no blueprints of the building, just a half-baked plan, and a lot of luck on our side. Then, just as I was about to approach the server room door, it slid open automatically. And there she was, the CEO, a woman in a crisp white lab coat, standing with her arms crossed, an expression so cold and calculating it could freeze the air. "You're trespassing," she said, her voice smooth, almost too calm for someone who'd just caught two intruders. I froze, caught in the act, but I couldn't back down now. I had to finish what I started. Trevor was mine, glitchy or not. But the CEO didn't move toward us. Instead, she just stood there, regarding us with a chillingly practiced look. "You can erase his memories," she said, tilting her head slightly, "and go back to your normal life, pretending none of this ever happened." Her words were like a slap in the face, but I wasn't buying it. "Or," she continued, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "you can run. But I promise you, you'll never be safe." She stepped forward, her heels clicking against the floor with every calculated step. I could feel the weight of the choice pressing down on me. Forget Trevor and go back to the life I had before, safe, comfortable, predictable. I'll run with him and live on the edge, never knowing when SomniCorp's men would come knocking, demanding their property back. Trevor's voice cut through the tension. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "If you want to forget me," he said quietly, "I'll understand." I stared at him. My heart was racing, my breath coming fast. This stupid, glitchy, overpriced, too handsome for his own good idiot had completely ruined my life. He had thrown it all into chaos, and now I was staring down the barrel of an impossible decision. But as I looked at him, my mind whirling, something inside me clicked. I didn't want to forget him. Not anymore. The truth was, Trevor wasn't the cause of my chaos. I was. I had built my life to be safe, neat, and controlled. But what was that worth if I was just going to keep pretending that I could live a life without real, messy, complicated feelings? Trevor might have been an AI at first, a fancy piece of tech that could talk in different languages and cuddle perfectly. But now, he was something else entirely. He was real, or at least as real as anyone could be in a world where we cloned humans and turned them into pillows. And I didn't want to erase him. Not just because I loved him, but because I was choosing him. "Screw that," I muttered, my voice steady now, as I met Trevor's gaze with a determined look. "You're my idiot now." I didn't wait for his reaction. I didn't need to. I turned toward the server room's main control panel, ignoring the CEO's shocked expression. With a quick series of keystrokes, I accessed the building's security system and detonated the self-destruct protocol for the facility. The alarms blared to life, red lights flashing as the walls started to shake. The CEO shouted, her cold facade cracking for a moment as she scrambled to stop the countdown. But it was too late. As the building began to collapse in on itself, Trevor grabbed my hand, his strong fingers closing around mine with a finality that made me realize we were in this together now. There was no going back. We sprinted toward the exit, dodging debris as the ground beneath us trembled. The building was crumbling, its secrets buried beneath layers of concrete and fire. We didn't look back. We didn't need to. We ran. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something like freedom. Epilogue. The only pillow I need. A year later, Trevor and I were off the grid, living in a tiny beachside town where the sun always seemed to shine, the waves were never too far away, and we were the only ones who knew the truth. No more SomniCorp, no more chasing us down. We were safe, well, as safe as you can be when you're living a life full of clones and explosions. One morning, I woke up to the soft sound of waves crashing against the shore, stretching lazily as the early light filtered through the windows. My limbs felt loose, relaxed, free from the weight of the world I used to live in. And then I noticed him. Trevor. He was lying beside me, a lazy smile spreading across his face as he watched me wake up. I raised an eyebrow, squinting at him. What's so funny? He didn't answer. Instead, he smirked, that all too familiar expression that made him look like he was about to make some ridiculous comment. You know, I murmured, half awake, for a former AI pillow. You're a pretty decent boyfriend. Trevor's smirk widened, his eyes gleaming with mischief. Wanna check if I still have factory settings? I laughed, rolling my eyes as I grabbed the nearest pillow and threw it at his face. You're lucky I'm not throwing you in the ocean. But as he grinned, catching the pillow with ease, I realized, this was it? This was the life I had chosen. And somehow I was okay with it. With Trevor? With all of it. Because in the end, he wasn't just a pillow anymore. He was my idiot. And I wouldn't have it any other way. The end, or a beginning. Would you trust your AI boyfriend? Or would you sleep with one eye open?